Hello my amazing people, and welcome back to my channel. If you're back, if you're new, welcome to my channel. I'm Shayna and I have another case for you all today. Before I get started, I just want to take a moment to extend my thoughts and condolences out to all of the family and communities affected by the tragedies that took place in Buffalo, New York and Uvalde, Texas. I just couldn't believe what I was hearing when I learned about both of the awful shootings that happened, and it's just a lot to digest. So I extend again my condolences out to all of those directly affected, and I also hope that you are doing okay, my viewers, that you're taking care of yourself. The case that we're going to be talking about today is one that I actually discovered recently. It's not a new case, but I hadn't heard of it until probably about a month ago. But before we continue, just want to give my usual disclaimer that this is all information that I have found online and compiled into a video for educational purposes. Thank you so very much for joining me today, and let's get started. Livonia, Michigan is where we are focusing for today's case. This area is located just about 20 miles outside of Detroit. It's largely considered a very safe area. Obviously, there are some areas of Livonia that are safer than others, but for the most part, it's understood to be a pretty affluent suburb of Detroit. And it's actually statistically safer than 87% of other United States cities, which I found very interesting. In 2012, Livonia was the town where Desiree Staperfene lived with both of her parents. At 17 years old, she was an outgoing and very happy girl. She was actually getting ready to finish up high school and was looking forward to her future because she had big plans to begin a modeling career, which definitely could have been successful for her because she was absolutely gorgeous. She and her parents had been living in their home in Livonia for about 5 years at the time of this case, and they had a very happy, quiet life. Her parents, Angela and David, were happily married for about 21 years at this time. Things were really looking up for Desiree at this time because she was actually in a new relationship with a young man named Jacob Burns, who was 19 years old, and the two got along great. I mean, this relationship was in large part a breath of fresh air for Desiree because she began this relationship after ending a different, very tumultuous relationship. This new one with Jacob, though, was peaceful and really balanced. The two complemented each other and they were happy together. But the tumultuous relationship that Desiree had before Jacob was with a man named Brian White, who also lived in Livonia and was the same age as Jacob actually, at 19 years old. But when she was with Brian, Desiree was not happy at all. Brian was very controlling, he was toxic, and the dynamic between the two was pretty unhealthy. It was unhealthy enough that Desiree thought it best to break things off with Brian. In his own ways, Brian was troubled, and some would even describe him to be unstable. So obviously, after moving on from Brian, Desiree began her relationship with Jacob, who was a really sweet and really nice guy. But even though she had called the relationship with Brian quits, it seemed like escaping him was not going to be an easy feat for Desiree. After the breakup, he continued to try contacting her. He continued to try to make advances on her and just put her in uncomfortable situations, which of course she always declined. But Desiree was so done with the relationship that she had with Brian that even if she hadn't moved on to be with Jacob, she knew that she didn't want that old situation anymore. But over time, after the two split, it almost appeared that Brian took the end of their relationship as a challenge. Like, he felt like he could find a way to get her back with him, even though she made it clear that that option was completely off of the table. So of course, dealing with Brian's non-stop advances was frustrating for Desiree, but she was just doing her best to keep her eye on the future, stay focused on her new happy relationship, and worry about the end of high school and all of the new beginnings ahead of her. On April 3rd of 2012, Brian attempted to contact Desiree once again, and she told him, for what she intended to be the very last time, that their relationship was over, there was no hope of them ever getting back together, and that he needed to move on with his life in the same way that she was. The very next day, April 4th, 2012, was supposed to be a normal day for Desiree and her parents, but unfortunately, it would turn out to be anything but ordinary. Desiree believes Angela and David had already left for the day before she made this troubling call to 911.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
No, there has been a murder-suicide. There is no survivors. Please send
Okay,
help.
what's going on? What's going on?
My ex-boyfriend broke into my house and killed my current boyfriend and then killed himself.
Okay, did you just find them?
No, he killed my current boyfriend and then he held me hostage and he just shot himself in the head.
Just now?
Yeah.
Okay, stay on the line with me.
And he kind of beat me up, and my parents aren't home. It's just me, and I'm 17.
What's his name?
Brian White and Jake Burns are the victims.
Jake Bird?
B-U-R-N-S.
Burn, okay. Where's the weapons at right now?
What?
Where are the weapons at? Where's the gun?
The axe is in Jake's head and the gun is in Brian's hand.
Where are you at inside the house?
I'm sitting in our breakfast nook. Brian's in the living room. There's the kitchen between us. He's dead. He's gone.
And so Brian killed Jake.
Yeah.
Don't touch anything, okay? Can you do me a favor? Can you go sit on the porch?
Yeah.
What's your name?
Desiree Staperfene. I can't walk, so I have to.
You can't walk? Okay, just stay there. Are you still tied up?
No.
Okay, do you need an ambulance?
Oh, my God.
What's Desiree?
Yes.
Okay, what happened?
Oh, I put too much pressure on my leg.
Okay, how long did he hold you guys captive for?
What?
How long did he hold you captive for?
Oh, God, since like 8 o'clock.
Since 8 o'clock this morning?
Yeah.
Did he break into the house?
Yeah, he watched my mom leave.
He watched your mom?
And I just came in when Jake and I were sleeping.
Okay, yep. Okay, are you on the porch right now?
Yeah, sorry, my leg really hurts.
No, that's okay. Do you need an ambulance?
Yep. An ambulance, no. A medic, yes.
Yeah, well, that's what's going to be on the ambulance.
I don't need to go to the hospital.
Okay.
I just want to get these bodies out of my house.
Okay, yep, we're on the way.
Okay, thank you. Are you going to stay on the line with me?
No, her mom left for work. And there's nobody else in there, correct?
Correct. I can call my dad. He works at 6 in Haggerty, so he can be home in about 10 minutes. My mom doesn't have a cell phone, so I don't know how to get a hold of her because she doesn't have a job. She got picked up by a friend this morning.
Okay. All right, but there is nobody, just confirming, there is nobody else in the house?
No.
Okay, and where does Brian live at? Where would he be registered out of?
5 in Newburgh. I don't know his address.
You don't know his address? Do you know he lives on Houghton?
Yeah.
Okay, do you know his
car's here in his mom's name. He wants me to call his mom, but...
Yeah, no, don't worry about that. We'll take care of that.
Yeah, my cell phone's inside. I grabbed the house phone because he had my cell phone when he shot himself, and I didn't even want to look.
No, that's fine. Okay, do you know what his middle name and date of birth are?
The cop is passing me right now.
Okay, yeah, he's probably just going to park just down the street, okay?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, no, not a problem. Just stay on the line with me until he's up there with you, okay?
Okay. I can't walk. He beat me up. I can't walk.
Do you know what Brian's middle name is?
Douglas.
And do you know what his date of birth is?
Tomorrow. He would be turning 20.
He would be 20 tomorrow?
There's no one else in the house. They're all dead.
They can't walk.
Yeah, the officer's coming up to me right now.
Okay, go ahead and talk to the officer, okay Desiree? All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That morning, Desiree was asleep with her boyfriend Jake in her parents' home when she was woken up by the sound of Brian hitting Jake with an axe. Shocked and in horror, as she came to and realized what was going on, Brian had already done so much damage that Jake's life was already nearly gone. And helpless with little to defend herself, of course, there was nothing that she could do but watch. After Jake was gone, Desiree found herself in a very terrifying hostage situation with Brian. He was rampaging and he was on edge, but he didn't actually make any attempt to hurt her with the axe that he had used to kill Jake. But obviously, terrified and not knowing what to expect, Desiree attempted to run from Brian. And when she made her attempt to flee, he grabbed her and pushed her down to the ground. He hit her on the left side of her face and her head repeatedly, attempting to knock her unconscious. And he also beat her very severely on her body to the point that it was difficult for her to walk. Brian held Desiree hostage for 4 hours, and while he didn't actually attempt to kill her, he did hurt her pretty badly, like I said. And while she's in this situation with him, she is sitting there trying to talk him down, trying to tell him that if he just stops now, everything is going to be okay, that there's no reason to continue, that everything will work itself out. Just basically trying to get him back to a steady level to where he's not so infuriated and seeing red. But Brian wouldn't listen. Around 12 p.m. that day, the last words he said were, "I love you, Desiree," before taking the gun he had and shooting himself right in front of her. Desiree, now left alive and in shock, made the 911 call and thought that that was the end of this nightmare. Jake was gone, Brian was gone, and while this was absolutely horrific, she thought that this was the end of it. She was under the impression this entire time that the only people in the house were her, Brian, and Jake, right? It made sense. She thought that both of her parents were not in the house because they had already left, but unfortunately, she was wrong. She would later find out that before Brian came in her room and killed Jake, he actually killed her mother, Angela, while she was in her bed asleep with the same exact axe that he used on Jake. Desiree assumed that Brian would have waited for Angela to leave and then sneak into the house undetected, but he actually snuck in while Angela was still there and in her room and decided that she also was going to die that day. Desiree found out this information from police after getting care for her injuries, and honestly, she just could not believe what she was hearing. After all the trauma that she had gone through, now she was finding out that she had also lost her mother. It was just unfathomable. I wasn't able to find very much information online about Angela, except that the people who knew her said that she was a sharp and feisty woman in a good way. People said that she would not have gone down without a fight that day, that Angela would have fought until the very end against Brian before succumbing to his attack. Angela saw to it that she and her husband raised Desiree in a loving home. She was a great mother and an incredible wife, and this tragedy really hit home for many people in the area, but especially, of course, for Desiree and her dad, David. He lost the love of his life in a very senseless way, and Desiree lost both her mother and her boyfriend at the same exact time. Jake wasn't just Desiree's boyfriend. It's said that they actually were longtime friends before getting romantically involved, so the impact that this had to have left on Desiree is, I'm sure, a huge one. It wasn't a brand new relationship. They had known each other for a long time.
Sad, empty, but I have a lot of friends and family to help. Not much else to say. A big hole in my life.
Every day I am sad, but every day I'm also happy. It's just an emotional roller coaster, but I'm along for the ride and I've accepted that.
It is a hurt that really never goes away, a loss that's hard to imagine. A wife, a mom, murdered while she slept, murdered with an axe by a young man upset over a teenage breakup.
A lot of anger. He took my family apart almost, over a teenage breakup.
It happened in the early morning hours. 19-year-old Brian White got into the home of 17-year-old Desiree Staperfene, who told him the night before their relationship was over. He killed her mom, Angela, and then killed 19-year-old Jake Burns, a longtime friend of Desiree's, who was staying with the family in their home on Sunnydale in Livonia. Then Desiree, who witnessed Jake's death, says Brian came after her.
And he grabbed me from behind and got me on the floor and was trying to knock me unconscious. And he was punching me in the side of the head and like all around my left side. I went into complete survival mode. There was no other option. I had to get out of there alive.
Brian killed himself.
the last thing he said was, "I love you, Desiree," and he shot himself while sitting on the couch in front of me.
Desiree called 911 not knowing that Brian had killed her mom too. Police told her hours later at the hospital.
That was probably the most surreal moment because, like I said, I witnessed everything with Jake. There was no room for denial with that, but I didn't see my mother at all, thankfully.
It's been a rough road, of course, for both Desiree and her dad.
Get back to living. It's not easy. We all have good and bad days. Today's a decent one. Tomorrow might not be.
Right.
Just trying to survive.
I miss Jake and my mother both so much, but I'm alive, and they would both want me to live my life and be happy with it. I can't sit here and live and be miserable. It would be a waste.
And both Desiree and David say there are lessons to be learned about life and death and how to move on.
Be kind. Don't be angry. Time will heal. And just try to treat people as you want to be treated.
Tell the people you love that you love them every day, every single day, because it could possibly be the last thing you say to them.
Desiree, such a strong young woman. Her dad is so supportive. They have a loving circle of...
Police, of course, launched an investigation into the events that took place that day and found some troubling information on Brian's Facebook page. His cover photo was a picture of a bloody room, and his timeline was full of concerning text posts, including, quote, "You can get addicted to a certain kind of sadness," end quote. Another one is, quote, "Did I mention I'm utterly insane," end quote. And he also said that he was desperate to connect. In addition to this, he posted a very long text post which included, quote, "My pain is constant and sharp, and I do not hope for a better world for anyone," end quote. It was also very obvious from Brian's social media that he had a clear obsession with the movie American Psycho. This movie stars Christian Bale, who acts as a working professional man by day and is a serial killer by night. While I haven't seen this movie myself, it's said that there's at least one scene in the movie where the main character murders someone with an axe, which would match, of course, the exact method that Brian used on that awful day. Upon conducting a search of Brian's home, police found 2 firearms in the basement, and they also found a recent online order for a knife. Police also concluded that the axe that Brian used on Jake and on Angela was from the Staperfene household. So Brian had to have seen this axe on his way into the home and then changed his plan from using his firearm to using this axe instead. And it's possible he thought it a good idea because of his knowledge of American Psycho or obsession, however you want to word it, but it did appear that he originally planned to use the firearm that he actually ended up using to kill himself in the end. Knowing that there were so many signs before this tragedy took place is one of the hardest parts of this case to process for me. Brian was what appeared to be a ticking time bomb, and no one saw the warning signs clear enough to stop him from doing the unthinkable. Police have said that he didn't actually threaten Desiree or her family or her boyfriend before this awful act, that while he was pursuing her and making advances on her, he didn't actually threaten them, so they had no reason to fear for their lives. But if someone may have taken a closer look at his social media and the things he was saying and possibly the way he was behaving, they may have thought to themselves, okay, something isn't right here. The Staperfene family released a long statement about the deaths of Angela and Jake, which included the following. "It is so deeply unfortunate that a simple breakup would cause such everlasting pain and loss. Please know that the Staperfene family is resilient, strong, and with courage. If anything in this world is a testament to such a thing, it is Desiree's survival. She's a wonderful reflection of her mother's strong convictions and her father's calm, steady guidance. We can only hope that other young people will understand that a breakup is not a permanent loss, but a gateway to another path. Had the perpetrator of these killings understood that healing is a better alternative to anger and hurt, nobody would be experiencing anything but the continuation of their lives. God bless the Staperfene family and friends." You guys know that I love to include very descriptive detail about victims and all of the stories that I cover, all the cases that I cover. And this case has a ton of sources online, actually, a bunch. And if you take a look for yourself, you'll see that. But I found that every single source that I was looking at was repetitive. They all repeated the same exact things. Pretty much everything that I just told you is the extent of what's available online. And I actually found that there were some sources that had a lot of incorrect information. So it was a little frustrating doing the research for this case because of how little there was available, but that didn't take away the importance of talking about this case for Angela and Jake's sake, as well as Desiree and her dad. I think it's very important to talk about cases such as this that can be examples of cautionary tales. While it's nobody's fault that they didn't see this coming, of course, it still can be used as an example of why it's important for us to tune in to our loved ones and see if they're exhibiting cry for help behaviors. Tell me what you think about this, of course, but a lot of our time is spent on social media or not actually with our loved ones, or texting and talking on the phone, not actually spending time with them, or we're seeing them through social media. I think that there can be a bit of a disconnect there where we're not actually asking people if they're okay, because we spend so much time communicating, but it's in virtual ways. So we think that we know what people are dealing with and what they're experiencing on a day-to-day basis, but in reality, we only see what they share with us in the very surface level conversations or social media interactions that we have. This case, of course, is a little bit different because Brian was showing very serious concerns on his social media. Obviously, if we see things like cries for help via Facebook posts or Instagram messages or Instagram posts, it's important to look into that. At the end of the day, I give props to Desiree for leaving a relationship that she was not happy in. That's what she should have done. It's just unfortunate that that decision to move on with her life in a healthy and happy way ended up in her losing her new love and her mother. I think we all have misplaced guilt sometimes, and I just can't imagine. I've talked about this in other videos. I just can't imagine grappling with that feeling of like, if I wouldn't have done this, then that wouldn't have happened. And you know, we all do that sometimes, even though we really shouldn't, because it's not her fault. I just think about, you know, what that experience may have been like for her, which is really troubling. But that is pretty much where I'm gonna leave this case. It, unfortunately, like I said, there's not a lot of information online about it, but I still thought it was an important one to talk about. I just wish that Desiree could have moved on with her life. She's not very active on social media or anything. Apparently she does have a Twitter, but she doesn't use it very often, or I think reports said she last used it in like 2014 or something. So she's under the radar, but as far as I know, she is doing okay. I do send my thoughts out to her and her dad if he's still okay and alive and doing well out there. This one was just hard to listen to the 911 call as well, because you hear how calm she is, but then you realize that she's just in shock. And when you hear about the details of what actually happened, it's absolutely horrific. Definitely be sure to let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Also, be sure to remember that if you have any case requests, you can check out my case request form. It's in the description box of this video. It's usually the last thing in the description box. Make sure you're staying safe and make sure you're staying healthy and taking care of yourself. And as always, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. You know what I'm gonna say. If you made it this far, you are loyal. You really are, and I appreciate you. I hope you have a wonderful week, a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on what time it is when you watch this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace.